Anybody know what that connection is with God? What the connection of the Spirit is to God? It says the Spirit returns to him. Anybody know what that means when it says?
Isn't it like? I mean, I take it. I could be wrong, but I feel like we have always been beings that have always been infinite, and then when our parents decide to have us, that's when we become finite for this life, and then we do away with this life when we pass away and we return back to whence we came, because that's why it says this life is but a vapor.
Okay.
And that's also why it says, like, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. So in order to know somebody, we had to exist prior to our earthly existence.
Okay. Good. I I agree with everything you say. I really do. I think that's great.
Do you mean what it is about God, or that the Spirit is God? Like, what do you mean? Like, what part?
Well,
how he does it? Because in Genesis it says he breathed into Adam, so it was the breath of God, was the breath of life.
Right.
The Spirit is God. God is Spirit, and that Spirit returns to him when we die.
Okay. Okay, good. All right, good use of Scripture. I like that. We also used Acts chapter 17. We can look at Acts chapter 17 and add that to our, we'll have a triangle, we'll have 3 verses, and that the verses have to agree. They all come from the same Spirit, so they all need to agree for us to have a concept that is clear and based in truth. So if we take a look at Acts chapter 17 and we look at verse 28. Somebody wanted to read Acts 17:28 for us.
For in him we live and move and have our being, as some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring.
Okay. So, in him we live. That's the whole human race. The whole human race lives in God. We've looked at plenty of verses today to know what that means. What does that mean that we live in him?
So he's lending us his Spirit?
Sure. Small s is God's nature. He shares his nature with us. When he does that, we become alive. We exist. Before that, we are not alive. When he shares his Spirit with us, we become alive. Okay? But he didn't only make us alive, he did more than that, because he formed us. We were formless as dust. He formed us as he desired us to be, a clay vessel he shaped. That's how we became human, is we were formed out of dust. This spirit made that dust live. But there's more there. There's more to it. Okay? But going back to Ecclesiastes, it says, when this spirit leaves, the formation of the clay vessel returns to dust. So it has no more formation to a will, to why God did that. That's where our soul comes into play. Because our soul, in order to have animation, to be able to choose, to function and think and ambulate and do the will that the soul is comprised of, we need God's Spirit to form the clay vessel out of dust and create the being that God calls his image. Okay? So, going back to Ecclesiastes, this spirit leaves. Where does it go? What does God mean by it leaves?
It leaves your body, and it has been blotted out from the book of life. You will not enter heaven. So, I mean, your only options are heaven or hell.
Well, we're talking small spirit. This small spirit that gives us breath, that gives the clay vessel that comes out of the dust and is formed into a being that is without soul and without life. It's just a clay vessel. And but it's held together because it is clay, and somehow it forms a physical structure that satisfies the will of the creature that made the soul for it. This body is designed in Psalm 139, it says, to satisfy the will of its designer. The frame that walks the earth carries out the intent of the person who made the soul, so that there's a harmony. So this spirit that comes out, that gives life to the being, so it can ambulate, its soul can choose, can have input and output, can express and have function, needs a nature that is spiritual inside of it to give it life. And once that spirit leaves the dust, it goes back to dust. So the residual products are the dust, the spirit, and the soul are left. But they're no longer put together into the clay vessel. They are now separate. The dust goes back to the ground, the spirit goes back to God, and the soul is ready to be judged. And it will face judgment and be determined eternally in heaven with God or eternal punishment. So the spirit leaves the body. Where does it go? What does Ecclesiastes help us to know about that spirit? Where does it go? We need more help. We need other verses. But we do know John 5:24 tells us that the spirit in which we worship is a requirement in order to serve God. In order to worship Him, that spirit is required. John chapter 5, I believe, or 4, is it 4? Let me see, I'll make sure. It's 4:24 of John. Somebody want to read that?
God is spirit, and those and His worshipers must worship in spirit and in truth.
Okay, how does this help us? What does God expect? What did He enable by giving us in our composite as a human spirit? What's the purpose of it? It's part and parcel of what?
Our worship?
Our worship. If we're not using our spirit, we're not worshiping. We must worship God in spirit. It's critical. So when God takes back His spirit, what also stops for us? Worship ceases. Christ said, not meanly, but let the dead bury the dead. They're not worshiping God in their spirit, and neither are those whose spirit is out. Let them worship them. Let them bury them. Okay? Do you see that? So the spirit is critical for us to, for the function of life, for the soul to be able to choose, realize who it is, and it's been given an appropriate body in Psalm 139 to a form and a shape that is makes the soul's assignment possible. Whatever you're going to be, that composite is complete. It's been made that way. So when the spirit leaves the body, Ecclesiastes says it returns to God. Acts 17 says we have this life within God. Where does the Spirit go? How does the Spirit leave? What is that? What are the mechanics of that? We have a lot of help. Acts 17, 28. For in him we live. All mankind lives within God. How is that possible? How is that made possible? This small s Spirit of God, where is it in relationship to life? To all life. It's everywhere. God, being Spirit, is omnipresent, small s. He is omnipresent everywhere. Acts 17 says we cannot live this life outside his Spirit. It's not possible. Okay? And we also know that if we are to worship God, we have been made possible to worship God because in part we must worship in that spiritual formation. And when the Spirit returns to God, we cannot worship anymore. Okay? So Ecclesiastes says the Spirit returns to God. Since we know far more now about what our spirit is and does and why it's given, when it returns to God, what does that mean? Where does it go? Acts 17 says we move within that Spirit. We live within that Spirit, all humans. Where does the Spirit go when it leaves? What's actually happening? The Spirit isn't going anywhere. What does returns to God mean? It doesn't go anywhere because we have life inside that Spirit, inside God. But the Spirit also is inside us, giving us life. So, when the Spirit returns to God, what does that mean about our life? What has ended? What does the Spirit, small s Spirit, the nature of God, afford us that is lost when he takes it back? Come on, guys, what do we know? We know that because it's there, our soul has the capacity for expression and reception. We know that soul's been put in a compatible body consistent with the prophecy of God for the soul, a clay vessel suited to what he is going to call through the soul for that being to do while it is here in the world. And that Spirit gives that creature life. So when he pulls his spirit back, what is really happening? It's not going somewhere. It's not going up to heaven. God is omnipresent. He's everywhere. The lowest place on earth you can go, the highest place, outer space, everywhere. He's everywhere. He's omnipresent. His spirit is everywhere. So when it says the spirit goes, what does it mean happens to us? What has changed? What happens to the soul? Its capacity to choose. Why would God take his spirit out? What has he said has happened to us? What do we not have anymore? What did his spirit afford us that is not afforded us anymore? There is no us. There is no creature there anymore. The spirit hasn't moved in space and time. What has changed? God's omnipresent. His small s spirit makes that possible. The spirit doesn't physically go anywhere. It isn't transported anywhere. What has changed? God's prophecy for the soul has ended. It's not your body that gives out. It's the soul no longer has authority for existence anymore. The prophecy is exhausted. We all have so long to choose and to do, to express and to believe, to receive. We all have a prophecy, a limit in which that will happen.